My quarterly presentation had just ended. I meticulously, relying on figures, proved how we had broken the $50 million revenue mark. And then, like a bolt from the blue, our new CEO, Ethan Hayes, stood up. He casually adjusted his cufflinks, cleared his throat, and with an unpleasant smirk that didn't touch his cold eyes, said, "Before we wrap up, I have another announcement. It concerns our management structure." I literally froze. My hand hovered over the trackpad, and behind me, on the last slide, shone the victorious graphic, record sales in Q2. Ethan Hayes moved forward slowly. The entire leadership team was silent, as if they had swallowed water. Some faces showed bewilderment, others, those who had been whispering conspiratorially in corners lately, avoided my gaze. "Effective today," Ethan Hayes continued in an icy tone, "Ava Sterling is stepping down as Chief Operating Officer. Her contribution has been, without a doubt, significant, and we are deeply grateful for it." He paused, as if savoring the moment. "But as we enter a new phase of aggressive scaling, we need fewer operational bottlenecks and more agile decision-making. Ava Sterling's strategic grasp was impeccable, but we needed speed, flexibility, audacity." A strange silence hung in the room. Not a deafening, shocked silence, but an ashamed one, as if everyone felt guilty about what was happening. "I believe she put it this way last week: we should be more careful about hiring and invest in development before scaling mindlessly," Ethan Hayes said casually, as if quoting something obvious. "Such caution is appropriate, but not now. Thank you for your service." He turned to the team with a triumphant look, as if he had solved all the problems in one fell swoop. I looked at him, this upstart who had only been with the company for 3 months, and smiled almost imperceptibly. "I appreciate the clarity," I said in an even voice. No trace of drama, no tears, no protest. Just silence, thick and tense. Then I stepped aside, watching Ethan Hayes, in triumph, take possession of the projector and display a slide with the words "Structure Optimization, Phase 2. I headed to my office with an impassive look, as if I were going for a normal lunch break. They knew nothing. They had no idea what I had already done. 2 months ago, when the board appointed Ethan Hayes, I sensed that changes were coming. And not for the better. He had emerged from the soulless world of corporations, where people are just numbers in spreadsheets, and ambition overshadows humanity. From the first glance, he saw in me not an ally, but an annoying obstacle that needed to be removed. 6 years ago, I created the company's product line from scratch. I assembled a team, breathed life into it. I wrote the operating manual that became our compass. And when the founder and CEO, broken by illness, left us, it was I who kept the company afloat, prevented it from sinking. I didn't expect applause, I craved only loyalty. But I received neither. Instead, I began to notice disturbing changes, meetings to which I was no longer invited, strategies that changed without my knowledge, and the oppressive feeling that Ethan Hayes was weaving a new story in which there was no place for me. And then, one afternoon, fate threw me a random conversation. I inadvertently overheard his assistant, forgetting to turn off the speakerphone, discussing lunch details with our largest supplier, a supplier I personally managed, with whom I had built relationships for years, securing lucrative contracts for us. The point is, I heard him say to the supplier's representative, to quietly take Ava Sterling out of the game. Everything was supposed to go smoothly. They dreamed of grinding me into powder, but I, foreseeing this, had long been weaving a web of protection. I recognized their intentions and possessed knowledge unavailable to them. Our key supplier, Chronocore Systems, was falling apart at the seams. Their quarterly reports, secretly studied by me, screamed for a savior. This was an opportunity not to be missed. I contacted an old friend from college, now a big shot in an investment company in Austin. Through a holding company that I had prudently created a year ago, we made an offer they couldn't refuse. A clean takeover, quiet, legal, and as inconspicuous as a shadow. When Ethan Hayes called the CEO of Chronocore Systems, hoping to exclude me from the negotiations, he was politely but firmly put in his place. All communication must now go exclusively through the new holding company's management. He never caught the connection. So when he triumphantly announced my dismissal to the entire team, when his smug smile said that the last obstacle to his beloved Phase 2 had been removed, I didn't even bat an eye. As Ethan Hayes sharpened his axe, I was already pulling the rug out from under him by closing the deal of a lifetime. Returning to my office, I slowly began gathering my personal belongings. There was the family photo, smiling faces captured in a happy moment. There was the brass fountain pen, a gift from the team last Christmas. Every time I held it, I felt their support. And, of course, the lean startup in a leather cover, covered in my notes, my faithful companion in the business world. Carefully placing everything in a box, I turned to the glass wall that separated me from the rest of the office. Behind it, Ethan Hayes, bursting with laughter, was animatedly discussing something with the CFO. Confidence oozed from him. I smiled again, but this time to myself. Have fun, guys, I thought. Tomorrow, emails would fly, contracts would be reviewed, and in 3 days, Ethan's smug confidence would turn into animal terror. After all, the heart of the company's supply chain, that very indispensable supplier, now belonged to me. And I wasn't going to stay silent any longer. On Friday morning, a polite but icy email from HR landed in my inbox. Subject, Transition Plan. Ava. Sterling. Inside was dry, formal text, please complete the attached checklist today by 5 p.m. After that, we will process your severance package and transfer benefits. And then a message from Ethan Hayes, Ava, would you please provide a knowledge transfer document for your successor? Sincerely, Brittany from HR. I snorted in indignation. This guy fires me in front of my subordinates and then asks for a favor as if we're best friends. As if nothing happened, he sends a sweet card. But I pulled myself together and replied restrainedly, Brittany, rest assured, all information will be documented. Sincerely, Ava Sterling. This was not just professional politeness, but a cunning plan. Every file I handed over was impeccably clean, meticulously accurate, but deliberately incomplete, so they would desperately need the help of a partner they no longer controlled. And the most delicious thing was that Chronocore Systems had no idea about our connection. At 10:17 a.m., the phone rang. It was Naomi, my lawyer. Her voice was tense. They're starting to dig, she said. Some clerk from your old company's procurement department contacted Chronocore and inquired why the new delivery schedule hasn't been signed yet. We responded officially, citing the recent acquisition and notifying them that all further negotiations will be handled by a new management team. Mark my words, they'll take action by Monday, I predicted. Or at the very latest, when they realize how critical Chronocore is to their damn Phase 2. Naomi chuckled, her voice laced with irony. They have an addiction they don't even know about. Congratulations, you now control their oxygen. I leaned back in my chair, staring blankly at the pile of framed awards I hadn't gotten around to collecting. Operational excellence, cost reduction, brilliant procurement, all achieved thanks to me. They used to carry me in their arms, and now I've become a thorn in their side. In the evening, I met with Haley, one of the few people I could still trust in this snake pit. She practically flew into our favorite wine bar, her eyes wide with excitement. That's all anyone is talking about. Ethan Hayes walked around all day with a triumphant look, but around 3 o'clock, he changed completely. Something really scared him. I thoughtfully swirled the wine in my glass. It's about Chronocore, isn't it? Haley nodded vigorously. They were going to sign the contract for the next quarter this week, but the call was cancelled at the last minute. The legal department was buzzing about upcoming changes in ownership, and as I expected, Ethan Hayes demanded an explanation. I raised an eyebrow ironically. Has it finally dawned on him? Haley leaned forward, her eyes burning with curiosity. He doesn't know anything. Not yet, anyway. What are you going to do? I slowly, with anticipation, stretched my lips into a smile. Do? I've already done everything. On Saturday, I received an invitation to a meeting, but not from Ethan Hayes himself, but from his purchasing manager, a certain Tyler H. The text of the letter was ridiculously cautious. Ava Sterling, I understand that our collaboration did not end entirely smoothly, but I was hoping for a short conversation regarding the contract with Chronocore. There has been some confusion in the company, and you, as I understand it, were the only one who conducted these negotiations. Would you be willing to give me some of your time? Sincerely, Tyler. I didn't answer. Not out of spite, but simply because it's no longer my concern. Instead, on behalf of the holding company Viridian Partners LLC, Naomi sent an official notice to TechCorp, the parent company. It stated, in black and white, that all further negotiations regarding Chronocore services would be conducted exclusively through Viridian's new customer support service. That Sunday, as soon as the clock struck 9 in the evening, my phone vibrated in my hand again. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. Ethan Hayes. Missed call, voicemail, new message. Instinct told me, don't answer. And Naomi confirmed my fears. Let your silence be the most deafening answer, she said, and I knew she was right. Monday stormed into TechCorp headquarters like a sudden squall. I got up before dawn, brewed a strong coffee, and opened the internal control panel. To my surprise, I still had temporary access through the vendor portal. Unapproved vendor contracts for the fourth quarter blazed in red. Failing to approve these contracts threatened to paralyze 3 key production lines. At 8:02 a.m., a message arrived from Haley. Ethan Hayes barged into the town hall meeting. At 8 a.m. No one knew what was going on. He looks like he hasn't slept in days. By 10:30 a.m., LinkedIn was buzzing like a disturbed hive. A press release had been published. Chronocore Systems announces change of ownership through Viridian Partners LLC. The acquisition opens a new era in management and customer relations. Our goal remains unchanged, to provide outstanding business solutions to our valued partners. My name wasn't mentioned, but everyone who knows me understood. At 11:01 a.m., an email arrived on my phone from Ethan Hayes. Just one line, but what a line, we need to talk urgently. I forwarded the message to Naomi. 10 minutes later, she called back, laughing, he's panicking. It's finally dawned on him who's really in charge in this kingdom he thought he ruled. And that was before I played my trump card. Chronocore didn't just supply software components. We were responsible for the data architecture of TechCorp's latest project, an AI-powered operations center, the project on which Ethan Hayes had staked everything, his reputation as CEO. Without our unique data libraries, the project was doomed to fail before it even launched. In the hallway, right outside my door, footsteps paused, then receded. My gaze drifted to the boxes of my office belongings, perched forlornly by the entrance. Unpack? Give away? It no longer mattered. On paper, I was no longer employed at TechCorp. But, strangely enough, they were still in my debt. On Tuesday morning, the storm hit TechCorp with full force. And I didn't need system access to know it. One glance at the raging sea of LinkedIn was enough. One of the project managers, without a word, changed his status to open to offers. A couple of engineers from the AI department shared the news of the Chronocore acquisition, seasoning it with sarcastic comments, big changes in the industry, and when one door closes, another opens. But the final nail in the coffin was a calendar invite from Ethan Hayes' assistant. Subject, emergency executive meeting at 9 a.m. Mandatory attendance. Haley messaged at 8:44 a.m. He's literally covered in sweat. We all saw him rush in. He looked like he'd just received a pink slip written in blood, no less. I chuckled, hiding my smile in my coffee cup. This wasn't a personal vendetta. I didn't take pleasure in simply watching Ethan Hayes fail. But I was terribly interested in how the board would realize the depth of their mistake when they entrusted the reins to a man incapable of calculating even 3 moves ahead. That morning, Naomi and I finalized our official licensing proposal for TechCorp. No ruthlessness, just a high price. Chronocore still provided services under the same volume discount model that I had personally negotiated to stimulate their growth and scaling. But now, that was over. TechCorp was now offered a pay-as-you-go model, a monthly fee plus a surcharge for data hosting, integration support, and, most importantly, access to our proprietary AI training modules, which now form the core of their new operations center. Naomi gleefully reread the terms aloud, as if savoring each word: standard rates for large clients plus a 22% surcharge for unique dependencies, exclusivity, and, of course, public acknowledgement of Chronocore's ownership by Ava Sterling. I grinned. Let's send it to them before lunch. Let them choke on it just in time. In the afternoon, my phone vibrated, notifying me of a message from Haley. Ava, the TechCorp engineers all know. You bought Chronocore. The news is spreading across Slack like wildfire. Ethan Hayes is furious. He's gathered the entire DevOps team for an emergency meeting behind closed doors. P.S. Already 2 directors have asked if you're hiring. I typed a reply, but froze, not sending it. Let uncertainty work in my favor. At that moment, Naomi received a formal response from TechCorp's legal team. They acknowledged receipt of our proposal but rejected it. Instead, they offered to discuss alternative licensing terms. They were desperately trying to save money, naively believing I would compromise. But I was resolute. Naomi, my right hand, sent them a concise but polite message. As clearly stated in our proposal, these terms remain non-negotiable unless you are prepared to offer us a significant equity stake or consider a public takeover. We understand if TechCorp chooses to seek alternative providers. But there simply were no alternatives. Chronocore wasn't just a service provider for TechCorp, we were their vital infrastructure. Replacing us was akin to not just replacing office chairs but rebuilding the entire building. Recreating what we had developed would take months, and they didn't have that time. That evening, passing by my new office in the heart of Viridian, at Chronocore's gleaming headquarters, I saw a construction crew finishing the glass walls of our new strategic lab. Watching them install the pristine whiteboards and interactive text screens, I felt something I had almost forgotten for the first time in months: hope. A warmth spread through my chest, and a smile involuntarily touched my lips. Great things lay ahead. Betrayal. The phone vibrated in my hand. An unfamiliar number, a new voicemail. With a heavy sigh, I pressed play. Ava Sterling, this is Ethan Hayes. I think we need to start over. I don't understand what you're trying to accomplish, but you're jeopardizing too many people. People who have supported you for years. Think about it. You were better than this. This fake concern, this condescending tone, made me tremble. I was endangering people? He'd painted me as a thief to the entire upper echelon of the company. He, obsessed with insane expansion plans, slashed training and quality control budgets, cancelled remote work for mythical productivity, and then blamed me when key developers quit. And now he was the victim? Ethan Hayes wasn't worried about people, he was worried about what the board would say. Haley confirmed my suspicions the next morning. He's trying to pass off the supplier problems as unpredictable market fluctuations, but the board doesn't believe him. They smell something fishy. They demanded a thorough supplier audit. He hemmed and hawed, and now the board has called in an independent audit committee. Everything is falling apart at an incredible rate. Her voice sounded desperate. I think he realizes his time is up. Before noon, an email with the subject line "Urgent Request for Support" from Richard Alvarez himself, the chairman of TechCorp's board, flashed in my inbox. Dr. Monroe, on behalf of the entire TechCorp board, we are reaching out to you with a confidential request for a conversation at your earliest convenience. We are currently analyzing the actions of the current management regarding the strategic partnership and believe you possess valuable information on this matter. Please let us know when it would be convenient for you to meet. Intriguing. I typed a reply, Mr. Alvarez, I would be happy to make time for you this week. Thursday or Friday morning would work. Please let me know which day is preferable for you. Sincerely, Ava Sterling, Managing Partner, Viridian Partners. After clicking send, I leaned back in my chair and stared at the framed quote on the shelf, a gift from one of my engineers at TechCorp: be the leader you won't have to apologize for later. I had nothing to apologize for. While Ethan Hayes was weaving his political webs, I was forging my strength, and this game was far from over. Thursday greeted me with a crystal-clear, frosty morning. The palpable bite in the air felt ominously appropriate. I chose an outfit that spoke for itself, a flawlessly tailored navy blue pantsuit, silver cufflinks, and a sapphire ring, a memento from my grandmother. The image screamed, "I don't work for you, but you'll regret this." At precisely 9 a.m., I entered the private conference room on the 32nd floor of the Empire State Building. It was here that TechCorp's board had reserved space for confidential external expertise. An administrator greeted me with a warm smile. "Dr. Monroe, they're expecting you." Inside the room, Richard Alvarez, the chairman of the board, rose to meet me. "Thank you for agreeing to come, Ava Sterling. We greatly appreciate you making time in your busy schedule." "Glad to be here," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. Silence filled the room, broken only by the muffled hum of the city outside. Dark walnut paneling gave the room a sense of gravitas. An untouched carafe of coffee sat alone on the sideboard. 6 board members were already seated around the table, their eyes fixed on me. A tense anticipation hung in their faces, as if they were trying to guess what version of me they were about to encounter. A furious harpy? A resentful victim? An arrogant victor? Instead, I brought an icy calm. "So, as I understand it, you're interested in this situation with Chronocore," I said, my voice level and steady. Richard simply nodded, a flicker of anxiety in his eyes. "It turned out to be far more serious than we anticipated." "Just as I thought," I mused. I placed a slim, expensively leather-bound folder on the table. "Here you'll find a complete chronology of events, every email, all correspondence, financial reports. All the evidence that Chronocore was fully acquired by Viridian Partners 3 weeks ago. We are now the exclusive supplier of their AI architecture and own the data modules that support over 60% of their next G." A stunned silence filled the room. I could feel their gazes burning into me. "At the time of the acquisition, I was no longer an employee of TechCorp," I continued, emphasizing each word. "Which means, legally speaking, there is no conflict of interest. Only the incompetence of your leadership, which failed to recognize operational risks in time." One of the board members, dressed in an impeccable gray suit, leaned forward like a predator ready to pounce. His eyes narrowed, and I felt the tension rising. Why did Ethan Hayes keep this quiet? Perhaps, I whispered, feeling the words hit their mark, because he simply couldn't foresee it. An awkward silence settled over the room, broken only by the sound of someone shifting in their seat. Richard cleared his throat. He explained to us that the supply issues were due to the inertia of power plays, I interrupted, shaking my head. Supposedly, Chronocore overestimated its capabilities. But let me tell you, Chronocore is more stable today than it has been in the last 5 years. The instability here is more Ethan Hayes' assumption that ignoring the accumulated knowledge of the company is wise. I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the faces of those present. You know, sometimes the problem isn't who's slowing things down, but who doesn't realize they're standing in the way. Later, back at the Viridian office, I gathered my new management team. We carefully reviewed the final terms of the updated licensing agreement that TechCorp was about to sign. "This is almost too generous," Naomi remarked, raising an eyebrow. "We included a 6-month transition period at the old prices to soften the blow for them." "They just won't understand," I retorted internally, feeling a surge of righteousness. But it's not our goal to punish. We're here to defend our product and set a new standard. Across the table, Owen, our tech genius, displayed a dashboard of incoming client requests on the screen. "We've received 12 inquiries from major companies since the press release," he announced, his voice filled with genuine pride. "Some of them are direct competitors of TechCorp. They're eager to learn how to switch to our platform." I scanned the list, my heart quickening. 2 names stood out like beacons. For years, I had pursued these clients while working at TechCorp, but all my efforts had been met with a wall of resistance. And now they were knocking on our door. Unbelievable. By Friday, the TechCorp board had called an emergency executive committee meeting. Haley kept me updated with a barrage of texts. Rumors were swirling that Ethan Hayes wouldn't survive the weekend. His access to the corporate calendar had been blocked. The legal department had started digging. Oh, and one more juicy detail. Apparently, the Dead Hobbs team had, out of habit, continued to copy me on the latest documentation repository long after I left. How touchingly loyal. A wry smile played at the corners of my lips. Audit logs with timestamps, undeniable proof of my flawless work. I look at that word, unraveling, and I feel it crumble apart, like a house of cards. This wasn't gloating, no. This was closure. Not revenge, but a cry for recognition. For 6 years, I built this from the ground up, and I was simply pushed aside, told, "You're in the way." I wanted to show them what happens when you ignore a woman who knew every line of code, closed all the partnerships, and trained half the people who are now keeping the company afloat. That evening, before closing my laptop for the weekend, I received one more message. Subject: formal response to license proposal from Richard Alvarez. Dr. Monroe, the board has reviewed Viridian Partners' proposal. We are prepared to accept all terms as stated including an updated pricing model, recognition of new ownership, and a 6-month transition period. We would also like to sincerely apologize for how your departure was handled. We understand that time cannot be turned back, but we sincerely believe that this will be the starting point for building respectful and healthy relationships in a professional environment. Thank you for your time and for reminding us what true leadership is. I reread the letter twice, then again, as if trying to squeeze a drop of comfort from each letter. I sent it to Naomi. The answer came instantly: "Well, this is almost equivalent to a corporate admission of guilt, we can't get more than that." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the shimmering lights of the night city. Life was in full swing below, people were rushing, setting goals, climbing to the top. And I no longer aspired to the top. I had already reached my peak, and it turned out to be nothing like I had dreamed. Monday began with a crushing silence, the kind that foreshadows a collapse. I arrived at Viridian headquarters around 6 in the evening, clutching a cup of coffee, and checked my email. There it was, a flurry of night notifications, requests from the press, internal updates. The story leaked. CEO fired as a result of company reorganization. TechCorp Board of Directors removes Ethan Hayes from office due to supply crisis. The headline hit hard, it was everywhere. Tech blogs, financial chronicles, even on LinkedIn, under the saccharine hashtag leadership matters. Clicking on the article, I frantically searched for familiar names. And there it was, Ethan Hayes' failure to recognize critical supplier risks, multiplied by the sudden loss of Chronocore, dealt a devastating blow to reputation and jeopardized entire product lines. A source close to the board spoke with ruthless candor. He is suspended from office immediately. Haley confirmed it within an hour. It's all real. Ethan Hayes vacated his office at 7 in the morning. No farewell speeches, no scandals. Didn't even look anyone in the eye as he left. Caleb Baker, a native of Iron Core known for his reputation as a cleaner, has been appointed interim CEO. P.S. They are renaming KIAB trying to distance themselves from Phase 2. Within the company, it is already a ghost project. Attached to the message is a GIF, someone diligently pouring water on smoldering coals. I forced a smile, but even in this whirlwind of events, I didn't feel triumphant. Only emptiness. I felt an inner calm, reinforced by the certainty of Ethan Hayes' inevitable collapse. But the events ahead meant much more. At exactly 11, I entered our laboratory, where the team had gathered for an important briefing. Our engineers were preparing for a technical launch for new corporate clients who had turned to us, watching TechCorp's shaky position. Before the briefing began, the technical director took me aside. "You just won't believe it," he exclaimed with amazement in his voice. TechCorp sent a draft public license agreement, and you know what? It mentions your name. I blinked, not believing my ears. "Are you kidding me?" "Not at all," he assured me. They wrote, Technology developed by Ava Sterling, exclusively licensed through Viridian Partners, right at the top of the document. The legal department must have had a hand in it. I took the document and stared at the text. To see my name. Officially, publicly, undeniably. It was like the first deep breath after months spent underwater. My heart was pounding. They never mentioned him, I whispered, never, when I was developing this system. My throat was dry, and my eyes were stinging with tears. Not at launch, not even after the first 1,000,000 users, the old words echoed in my head. Well, Owen proclaimed, his voice sounding confident and loud, now they're talking about it. And they're talking about it loudly. On Tuesday, we held a closed strategic meeting to discuss the avalanche of migration requests. 12 former TechCorp clients requested a demonstration of our new architecture. 12. 3 of them seemed completely unapproachable when I was still working at TechCorp. Management rejected the very idea of cooperation with them, without listening to my presentations to the end. But now they are knocking on my door themselves. Not because of glossy slides or clever marketing tricks, but because they finally realized what I had been saying for years. The value is not in the brand, but in the work itself, in the result. That same day, later in the evening, the phone rang. The screen showed a name that I hadn't spoken to in ages, Isabel Grant. She was one of the few women in leadership positions at TechCorp, besides me. Smart, ambitious, insightful, but incredibly driven. We worked shoulder to shoulder until she was kicked out during another reorganization 2 years before I left. Ava Sterling, she said, and there was reverence in Isabel's voice. I've been following your every move. You have no idea what this means to women in tech, especially those over 40. I froze, searching for words. What could I say? You didn't just win, Isabel continued, her eyes shining, you proved that dignity and strategic thinking can go hand in hand. That you can come out on top without stooping to your opponent's level. That's incredibly rare and a true strength. Her words echoed in my head long after the call ended. I hadn't anticipated such an impact. It wasn't just about a triumphant return, but about the message I carried. You can fight back without getting your hands dirty. On Wednesday, TechCorp released an official statement sent company-wide. TechCorp had entered into a strategic agreement with Viridian Partners to continue providing access to the Chronocore platform. We are committed to maintaining operational excellence while continuing to evolve under new leadership. At the very end, almost hidden, was a modest line mentioning my name. Minimalist. Nothing extra. Viridian's marketing team was finalizing my presentation for the Global Tech Summit. The topic, when the system says you're replaceable, and you prove it wrong. That evening, I found a note in my mailbox. Anonymous. A card. One sentence, you are a story for my daughter when she lacks strength. No name, no signature. I held the card close. Not pride. Not revenge. Clarity. It's not about loss. It's about recovery. Name. Job. Value. This is not the end. A year after leaving TechCorp, I walked into Viridian. Morning. Light on the polished floor. It was a moment without grand pronouncements, without triumphant cheers, just a quiet triumph echoing in the click of my heels and the steady hum of the office of the company I had built from scratch. On my way to my office, Owen pulled me into the strategy room. You have to see this, he whispered with a sly grin. Stepping inside, I saw our analytics dashboard covering the entire wall, pulsing with live data about our clients. The numbers spoke for themselves. Client retention, a staggering 98%. New enterprise client growth in the last quarter, an impressive 14%. Year-over-year revenue growth, an explosive 31%. But then Owen showed me a number that truly made my heart skip a beat. TechCorp's projected market share loss. A full 17% net migration to Viridian's infrastructure. 9 of their 20 largest clients were now with us. They tried to bury it at first, Owen said, his eyes sparkling with triumph. But investors started asking uncomfortable questions, and now they finally have to answer. I blinked, hardly believing what I was seeing. Answer? How? He turned the screen. An official statement. Just released on TechCorp's investor page. The words, like a sentence, seared into my memory. We acknowledge that strategic missteps, including failures in managing key partnerships, contributed to the challenges encountered in the past year. And we give credit to the colossal work done by previous leaders, like Ava Sterling, creating the very operating systems that still rule the market. And you know what? They weren't hiding behind the scenes, whispering in corners. They openly, in black and white, mentioned my name in connection with my work. I confess, I leaned against the table, as if momentarily paralyzed by surprise. Owen glanced at me, then said, "It's not everything, of course, but it's something, it's enough." I replied, with bitterness in my voice, "I don't need applause. I needed the truth, just the truth." Later that day, I glanced at the fresh reports from our legal team. 3 more licensing agreements successfully concluded. And that was just the beginning.